Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again. Believe in a power greater than what you are going through. When you don't know what to do, keep breathing.
That's right. When you don't know what to do, just keep on breathing. From the City of Angels in Los Angeles, welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Land. I'm Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver, at caregiverdave.com, along with my lovely co-host, former mayor of California Beach Town, and best-selling author Debbie Peterson. We're also coming to you live and on demand 24/7 on numerous syndicated radio and podcast networks, on 30 global and audio video platforms, including iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, SoundCloud. The list goes on and on. In fact, we are proud to be voted #1 caregiver podcast on FeedSpot out of thousands, and #1 caregiver podcast of the top 50 on Player FM. And we have an especially exciting show planned for you today. Rebecca LaChance, Karen Smith-Racicot, and Karen Justice. Three widows is like the three amigos. They've authored a new book titled Widows Among Us that incorporates their stories and insights. Collectively, they have pulled back the curtain on widowhood and shared their aghast. Did I say that right? Aghast.
Angst.
Angst. Thank you.
Share their angst, anxiety, difficulties.
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that. And also challenges and grief, as well as ways in which they have created new futures for themselves. Widowhood is a global story, and so is their book. Their relationship became personal in a hammock, in a what?
A hammam.
Hammam in Morocco. What is a hammam?
It's a cross between a Mediterranean public bath and a upscale spa.
Oh, I like the sound of that. The book idea was envisioned in front of a fireplace overlooking the red rocks of Sedona. Manuscript was drafted, changed, edited, and reorganized in Maryland, Ohio, a rented home in Pittsburgh, and a condo in Panama City Beach. Almost anti-climatically, it was finalized on Zoom. Today, they will share some aspects of their stories and insights with us. But before I begin, I want to take this moment and thank my last week's guest, Tony King. She has more than 20 years' experience as a top sales leader in Medicare planning. When Tony saw the recurring theme of confusion as it relates to understanding the rules of Medicare for choosing which type of Medicare plan that would best suit the needs of the average American, she was inspired to write Medicare Survival Guide. And just a reminder, you can watch or listen to that interview, all our interviews on our membership website, caregiverdave.com, or any of the other 30 platforms I mentioned earlier. All right, enough of that. Rebecca, Karen, so great to have you on the Caregiver Dave show.
Good to be here, Dave.
Thank you.
I always like to ask my guests, just who is Rebecca, Karen, and why were they placed on this earth? Rebecca first.
I'm Rebecca. And why I was placed on this earth is probably something I probably won't find out for a very long time. But, in terms of my life and my career, I've had a very nonlinear career where I spent at least 30 years as a registered nurse. And after that, I redefined myself about every 10 years with, different perspectives, and went into alternative healing. I had a photography studio, an art studio, and now I'm an author.
And how about Karen? Tall Karen.
Tall Karen, that would be me.
How tall are you?
6'1". My husband insisted 6'2". I say it's 6'1", just somewhere in that vicinity. But in my family, I'm normal. My dad was 6'10", and my brothers are 6'7" and 6'8". So I look very normal in my family, just all around everybody else. So I am here, obviously, been widowed for almost 15 years, but I have remarried since then. I used to own an accounting firm with my late husband. And after his death, I kept it on and then sold it because I realized I really don't like accounting that much. Have done some financial coaching and now writing a book. And I am here on this earth to help whoever I can with whatever I can and have fun in the meantime and travel and see a lot of the US, as much of the US as I can, and other parts of the world too.
Wow. And short Karen.
Well, that's one thing that Karens have in common. We love to travel, explore as much as we can. And I agree with her that my role here is to be a facilitator. I decided when I left a full-time career of any sort, because I'm like Rebecca, I was nonlinear. I thought, well, in any organization, we always had mission statements. I need a mission statement. So mine is to enable discovery for myself and others. So I'm a facilitator. I want to open doors. I want to open eyes. I want to open thought processes. And my career hasn't been quite as segmented as Rebecca's. I have been a high school teacher, a preschool teacher. I've taught taxi cab drivers. I've run tourism offices. I've written for Norwegian expat newspapers and worked for economic development in Norway and Texas. Sold toys, sold advertising, and now I'm writing a book again.
Cool.
I was an army wife for 31 years. It was what I could find where I was.
Good answer. So let's begin. I won't mention names, but I'll throw the question out there. Whoever wants to answer it, just go ahead. Raise your hand or something so the others can see it. So how do you manage medical measurements and terminology?
I'll answer that one because, and Rebecca will help me, because it was my challenge. I was the long-term caregiver of the three of us, and during near the end of my life, my husband's life, hospice nurses over the phone used to tell me to give him so many milliliters or centiliters or whatever of medicine, or to increase it by one of those others. But whatever they were telling me and whatever was on the instrument that I had to dose the medicine were two different measurements. And I was trying to figure out how to do it. And math, all the moving around I did in my life, math is not my strong skill. It was very frustrating. So Rebecca has since then, I didn't know her at the time, told me that they're the same. If the healthcare providers had just told me that. So how do I deal with it? After the fact, I go, well, you did the best you could. But I think that that's one thing that we want to emphasize. I talk about that story in the book. And I think that's one thing we want to emphasize to anybody who's working with a spouse or a parent who's providing care for someone, to make sure that medical jargon and measurements are perfectly understood. It's very stress causing otherwise.
How long did it take you to get to that point? I'm sorry, Deb.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in there because I have an ongoing question that arises. You see, when you're asked which prescriptions are being taken, you see the MCG and you see the MG. I never know, am I talking about milligrams or micrograms? And it's interesting because when I report that to whom, whatever medical professional is asking me what meds I'm taking, they never clarify. Can you shed any light on that one?
I think the easiest thing to do would just be to read the initials to them. And they're the ones that use the jargon. And, we got a lot of jargon in medicine and the healthcare system. And so the easier thing for you to do is just say, it says 100 mcg at twice a day, or it's 100 cc's twice a day, or whatever that abbreviation is. Just read the letters. Just tell them the letters. Yeah. And they those letters mean.
Thank you.
Debbie, did you get the text that I sent you?
I did not. No, I was checking for it. I didn't see a text or an email. Wait, I just got it this minute. Yes, yeah. Thank you.
It was late. So let's talk about paperwork. Is your paperwork ready for the unexpected life events? And that makes so much sense because I don't know how many times I go to doctors. I had my hernia done, I had my prostate done, I just had a colonoscopy, and they ask you the same questions. List all your medications, the dose, and the frequency. Don't you guys have this somewhere on a database? Because I need to have it like on my phone. I'm leery about taking a picture of things because I know it's there for the world to see. You're giving up your privacy. What do you guys think about that?
So when it comes to paperwork, that's kind of my specialty.
Mhm.
And we're talking more than just medical. We're talking legal, financial, anything that a spouse or family member is going to need to know about anything that's going on in your life. And so when we talk about paperwork, it has to do with, are the legal documents signed? Do you have a will? Do you have a power of attorney, a medical power of attorney? Is your spouse or family members' names at every single doctor's office you go to? You know, yes, you need a legal document that says, here's my power of attorney, et cetera, but every doctor, dentist, et cetera, office you go to, you also need to say, so and so can talk to my doctor about my blah, blah, blah. So you need to have all of that in place, your wills and other legal documents. Financial accounts. Does anybody know login information? Is there enough life insurance, or where would some bank accounts be held? And, you know, all that information that if your world is starting to or has fallen apart due to an illness or a death, it is so much easier on the spouse and family left behind if the paperwork is in some semblance of order. They know where it is. They know who to call. It makes such a world of difference. It really does.
And they
And
make
that's not only, Dave, that's not only important when you're in my situation where you know that someone has a terminal illness. Accidents happen.
Yep.
The average age of a widow is 59. So a lot of that's not old age disease. So everybody should have their paperwork in order.
yeah. You know, they make you sign all these documents. I don't read them. I don't know if you read them, but and it's page after page after page. You know, you're giving your life away. You know that if they kill you, they're not responsible. All this other stuff. If you're paralyzed, um, are those enforceable in a court of law? I mean, can we, if they kill us because they didn't bring us back from anesthesia or whatever, do we have a case, or did we sign away all our rights? Just
We
to
are not
scare you
lawyers.
into it.
Yeah,
Huh?
I was going
We
to
are
say,
not
yeah,
lawyers. Cannot answer that question.
we are not lawyers, and you should take that to your
I
job.
teach a class. I actually teach a class. I've written a book on getting your documents together. And again, when I talk about documents, it's legal, financial, and insurance papers. And the first thing I say at the beginning of the class is, I cannot answer your questions for you. I can give you information and I can give you guidance, but talk to your professional advisors. And so whether that is your doctor or your lawyer or whatever, that's really, you know, it's about having paperwork in place to protect your loved ones and having conversations. Because as someone who owned an accounting business and my husband sold insurance and retirement accounts, we had all of our paperwork in place, but he died at the age of 49 of a heart attack on his way into the office 3 days before a tax deadline. And while we had the paperwork in place, we'd never had the discussions about what happens if.
Hmm.
And so the paperwork was great, but it really didn't do what it needed to do because we'd never had those conversations.
Yeah.
So.
Debbie, can you ask a question?
Yeah, I'm really curious about the transformation after widowhood. You know, we hear about life after death, life after this, life after that, but I've never heard about life after the death of a spouse. Can you tell us more?
And how long do people generally wait before they start looking, maybe on purpose, or maybe it just happens for another spouse, fall in love, you know?
Rebecca, do you want to manage that one?
Well, I'll manage my part, but I think you can hit the other aspect that he finished up with. Again, it's all going to be individual, but in terms of my story, I had to. There are a couple things that play into what my grief process was, and one of which is that I am neurodivergent, and so I don't respond to a lot of things the way people think that I should. And I preferred it. The only way that I could cope with the state that I was in was to be alone. I just be alone. I developed a long-term relationship with my sofa and Netflix. I just needed to be alone. But the bigger aspect of it was that I realized that how I had been raised as a young girl was also influenced by my neurodivergence. And I had to literally go through a spiritual reckoning about how can I pull myself out of this state, given what the state of my brain is, how my brain works. And so that in itself took probably 12 to 18 months, which happened to coincide with I had a really severe case of brain fog.
That sounds like a short amount of time. Some people who grieve for years, to 5 years, 10 years. Some people never stop grieving, and they never can seem to get on with their life. Keep the picture of their loved one on their Facebook page like forever. Is that helpful?
Some of those things I think are some sort of a personal attitude. One of the women who read our book commented to me, and we had some pre-readers, and she commented to me, she had seen her husband shot in front of her while she was holding her 1-year-old child. And she was like 20, 21. She's now in her 50s. And she said, Karen, your book allowed me to let go of the guilt I've been carrying for moving on. And I think that's many times the case. If I loved him as much as I said I did, I can't let him go. If my family expects me to grieve forever, or my neighbors or whatever. So it's expectations that you put on yourself and that you feel that society's putting on you.
And I also feel very strongly, as we've all said, that it really depends on the person. My husband died again. He was 49, I was 47. It was very sudden, but I grieved, and I grieved. I still grieve to a degree, but I don't anymore. I don't let it, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't shape my life. Let's just put it that way. And I began dating a year after Sam died. And in some ways, some of my initial thoughts were, what are people going to think? They're going to think I didn't love him if I could start dating that soon. But my mentality at the time, and still is to a degree, always has been, he's gone. He's not coming back. I loved being married. This is what I want to do moving forward. But you're also talking about someone when her oldest daughter went to college. I cried all the way home, and I came home and I changed her bedroom into my office. So, it's like I'm very much a realist in that sense, that I can grieve and still move forward at the same time. And some people can and some people can't. And I think everybody, and one of the things about our book is everybody does it differently. They feel it differently. They react differently. We are three, as you can tell, three very different women. We all lost our husbands in a very different way, and we all experienced it and handled it differently. But there's also a lot of similarities woven throughout our stories. And that's one of the things that we like to talk about in our book, is that everybody is going to resonate with something in our book. One of the three of us, maybe different parts of each of us, because we talk about the same journey, but we traveled it very differently. Short Karen, she knew her husband was going to die. She had time to prepare. And then she was a whirlwind after he did, for various reasons. But partly was her personality, and partly because of, the ability to know that she was going to be able to make those decisions. So it is an individual path. Our hope is that people will resonate with it and feel, I had a reader, again, a pre-reader, say that she felt safe. Our stories helped her to feel safe, that she's not facing widowhood. She's hoping her husband's going to be around for another 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
She's also at the age where the reality of widowhood is a little more real. And after reading our book, she feels that she could handle it if and when it happens.
I know a lot of people whose spouses died, and they get a lot of judgment from their kids, their adult kids, or their neighbors, or their parents, that not enough time has passed. Have you guys felt any of that?
The last part of our book, is how to help and support a widow. And we have a lot of great ideas. And one of the ones we put on Facebook yesterday was, have you thought about going out and shoveling the driveway for your widowed neighbor? But we also have a list of, please don't do this. And one of them is everybody experiences it differently. Everybody wants to move on differently. It is not your life. Stay out of the widowed person's life. Let them date, let them mourn, let them stay in one place, or let them move and travel all over the world. It's not your life. Let them live their own life.
Well, yeah, and for those two
Judging.
people, they really don't have the privilege of interjecting their thought processes into the widow's life. I mean, as Karen said, it's not your life, leave her alone.
You were talking about what's at the end, some of the last things in your book, and one of the comments I've read that you'd written was you question the value of condolence gifts, and that's curious to me. I always think it's wonderful when people bring food. Well, that's me. But what are your thought processes on that, ladies?
Well, I will speak to that because I'm the one that's probably the most stringent about the idea. There are several aspects to that. And one is when I talk about condolence gifts, I don't necessarily mean like taking a pan of lasagna over to the widow, because literally that's one of our suggestions. Don't ask, what do you need? Just offer, I have this extra pan of lasagna. Can I give it to you? But in terms of condolence gifts, my reference is more in terms of the commercialization of the condolence gifts. And, we really need to require a lot of thought with this in terms of, are people sending boatloads of flowers to the widow? Is she allergic to any of those flowers? Does she have any respiratory problems where if she has to inhale those floral scents that will cause her difficulty in breathing? And what is she going to do with those 32 new vases? Because that just becomes, one other burden that she's got to deal with at some point in time. And the same thing is with the commercialized foods that people send, or the specialized little knickknacks. Again, is this anything that she's ever said that she had any interest in whatsoever? And how much of a burden is it going to be to her when she has to clear all of this excess out of her house? But we tell you, she doesn't have the energy for all of that, and it really does become a burden. But I have the other deeper part of it for me is about the social aspect, where if someone sends a gift like that, it blocks the actual human connection and interaction. It's a way not to feel uncomfortable with this woman who's in deep grief and in deep pain when she needs somebody to be there with her or just to sit quietly with her. And, I think sometimes that we depend too much on Harry and David sending some sort of gift to the widow, so we don't have to pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm thinking of you.
Yeah. Let's talk about your book, because time is running out and I want to get to what you want to speak about in your book. Why should people buy it? What do you hope that they will learn from it? And who's your audience? Obviously, people who are widows, but does it go any further than that? Could it apply to divorce? A woman catches her husband cheating on her and she divorces him. That's kind of like a death, isn't it?
Well, I could speak to the divorce aspect because I had been divorced previously, before I met my husband. And the divorce is emotionally traumatic. Well, for me, it was emotionally traumatic because I just didn't believe this was happening. And I had this vision that we were going to live happily ever after and be old people rocking on our front porch together. Whoop, dream dead. But I will tell you that my experiences in grieving that divorce actually helped me when my husband died, from the standpoint that I knew this pain, this trauma was time limited, and that I could make it through to the other end of that tunnel, to come out the other side. What?
I think that our book is for maybe three different audiences. And we struggled with just who's your reader? You know, that question every author faces when they start with the book. But as Tolkien says, this book is for every married woman. And I expand that to every couple. Because most of all, we want them to be prepared. 2,800 American women are widowed every day at the average age of 59. And many of them are not prepared. We want people to be talking about widowhood. So we want people to be prepared and not be frightened of it. And we've learned that most new widows are not able, not willing, not even thinking about picking up a book to read. But we want them to read it in advance so that when they go through the angst of widowhood and the difficulty, that they're going to say, hey, you know, this isn't so unusual. Yes, I'm unique, but it's not like I'm suffering or I'm bad or I'm, you know, whatever the fears might be. So we want to reassure her and give her some advice on the brain fog and what to do and how to take, and to remind her to take care of herself. And then, as we mentioned a minute ago, we want to also reach people who know someone who's been widowed so that they know that beyond the casserole the first day, and not to send Harry and David as an excuse, that there are other things and longer term things that they can help and support widows. So we basically want to reach every married woman, and then we want to reach those who know her and the women who've been widowed as well.
How about men? Do you, what about the widowers? Does any of this apply in your experience to widowers?
Absolutely. But, you know, obviously we're three women, so we wrote it through from a widow's view. The bulk of what we talk about in the book is appropriate for men as well. It's just that's the viewpoint that we wrote it through, right? And so that's what we know. We do have the book is actually available on Thursday from Amazon. It is, and I'm not sure when this is going to release, so it's releasing January 9th. So if the podcast is after that, it'll be available on Amazon as well as our website at threewidows.com, and that's THREE widows.com. But we would like to, I am very, very passionate about the fact that this is really for everyone, because it's my big thing is the preparation, whether it's the paperwork and the finances or knowing the mechanics of your house, or at the very least, who to call. That was one of the most important gifts Sam gave me before he died, was here's people that you call in case anything ever happens to me. And that's what I did. Because you're in this grief, you are full of chaos, you don't even know the next step. Depend on the people that is going to help you, whether it's professionals or best friends or whoever that might be. But I really do feel that really everybody should read this book. My mom's been a widow shortly before I was, but she's much older. And she said, you know, I learned things I didn't even know. So, and it's a way to help if you want to know what a widow is going through, so you can help her, read the book, because you'll read her stories and you'll know how they're feeling. And it's a feel-good book. It is women really coming into their own and creating a life out of a circumstance that they never wanted to be in. But, you know, we're here, we're doing well, and we want other women to know that they can and they will do well after a traumatic event.
And Dave, our website also includes 3 checklists that people can give us their emails, and they'll receive a checklist on things to do for preparing, on things that a new widow should take care of because her head is swimming and she's not sure, and then a short list of ways to help a widow. So those checklists are available on our website.
So what is the website and what is the name of the book?
The book is the website is threewidows.com, and the book is Widows Among Us, Stories and Insights. So we decided to go with Three Widows LLC. Nobody's going to have that name, right?
Right.
I know.
Finding the website, threewidows.com, wasn't difficult either.
Anything else you want to share that you haven't already?
Thank you for the opportunity to talk to your audience.
Absolutely.
We're now caregivers, yes. All right. I think that's a wrap then. We didn't get to all our questions that we wanted to ask you. Uh,
You're always willing to come back.
Yes,
There's always another time.
how kind of you. I can't believe how fast our time has gone today. Thanks so much for coming on the show, and we may have you back. How can our listeners reach you? Basically, you said it's 3widows.com. Is that the number 3 or THREE?
Spelled out.
T-H-E-E. Spelled out.
It's THREEWIDOWS.com.
Right.
And
Correct.
which is Widows Among Us, right?
Mhm.
The book, yes.
Is there a subtitle?
Stories and insights.
Stories and Insights. Okay.
hmm
Very good. Debbie, how can people reach you to find out what you are doing for the world?
Well, mayordebbie.com is probably the closest. And, we're always finding things that we can do better, that our cities can do better, how they can better serve us. And so mayordebbie.com reports on some of those, or Corruption Chronicles reports on how they can do better too.
And my best-selling book, It's Your Life Too, How to Thrive as a Caregiver, available wherever books are sold, and also on my free membership website, caregiverdave.com, where you can also schedule a free 30-minute initial coaching call, talk about whatever you're struggling with. And I also invite you to join my Caregiver Dave Facebook community of 34,000 caregivers. Lots of tools, resources, videos, this radio show, and much, much more. And if you click the like or follow button on whatever platform you're watching this on, it helps us reach even more caregivers by improving Google's mysterious engine algorithm formula. So again, thank you to all my listeners out there. Thank you guys. Thank you, Debbie. All over the world, especially those that tune in, for making us the #1 caregiver podcast and radio show on the internet. So until next week, same time, same channel. May God richly bless you all. Bye-bye.
Dave Nasani, the Caregiver's Caregiver, has just released his 6th book entitled It's My Life Too, Thrive to Stay Alive as a Caregiver. It was specifically written for caregivers who know they should be putting their needs first, but just don't know how. Dave is the sole caregiver to his wife, Charlene, since 1996. He knows firsthand what caregivers are going through, because he is one. He now speaks all across the country, offering caregivers his amazing caregiver support package. Even the airlines tell us that in the event of an emergency, to put your oxygen mask on first, before you help your child with their mask. They know that those who don't heed their advice often black out, thus becoming unable to help either themselves or their child. And caregivers are exactly the same way. It's My Life Too, Thrive and Stay Alive as a Caregiver will help caregivers who are neglecting their sleep, diet, and social life and learn to put their needs first. Pick up your copy today or buy one for your special caregiver, on sale everywhere and at caregiverdave.com.
Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing.